The U.S. leads the world in oil consumption, ringing in at 18.5 million barrels per day in 2009, which was over 4 million barrels more than the entire European Union combined. This number has only continuously increased ever since. As oil fuels every part of our daily lives in some shape or form, the demand for crude oil will not cease anytime soon. Oil will continue to be drilled for, extracted, refined, and transported along American shores, which will indefinitely lead to accidental oil spills. It is currently estimated by the U.S. National Research Council that approximately 168 million gallons, or 47% of the oil released annually into the North American waters, is due to natural seeps on the seafloor. Prior to the 205 million gallons of oil the Deepwater Horizon disaster spewed into the Gulf of Mexico, the input of oil due to drilling and processing was only around 4%. It is during these times that the human intervention is necessary to diminish the environmental effects of an oil spill. Due to the potentially devastating effects of an oil spill, it is important for the general population to be aware of the ways in which humans can intervene, and in particular with the use of oil dispersants, which is the topic we will cover today. Just by knowing some basic information about this topic can give a person the knowledge to make an informed decision on whether or not dispersants should be used during the event of an oil spill. What is a dispersant, you might ask? Dispersant is a chemical that is applied directly to the oil in an effort to break down the oil to enhance natural dispersion. Dispersants break down oil into small droplets that enter the water column, where it is then further broken down into non-toxic compounds by a combination of various natural processes. For this reason, it is important to understand the natural processes that are involved in oil degradation, which include weathering, evaporation, oxidation, sedimentation, and biodegradation. Weathering involves the combined action of currents, temperature, waves, wind, and other environmental aspects that will break down oil both physically and chemically to form droplets. Evaporation occurs when the liquid component of oil is evaporated into air. Oxidation is the chemical transformation of oil which makes it water-soluble, so that oil can combine with water molecules, which will ultimately result in oil breakdown. Sedimentation is the process by which oil is absorbed by suspended material, and is then deposited on the sea floor. Filter feeders such as the baleen whale, scallops, clams, and mussels also filter out oil, which is then deposited on the sea floor. Simultaneously with these other processes, biodegradation occurs, which involves microorganisms that break down oil. These microorganisms break down hydrocarbons in the oil into other naturally occurring, non-toxic compounds. Each of these crucial processes is aided by every other process. Again, chemical dispersants accelerate oil degradation and dispersion that interact in unison with natural processes to ultimately degrade oil into non-toxic compounds. Dispersants may sound like a good idea, but are dispersants actually effective when it comes to oil degradation and dispersion? Researchers from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at the University of Cincinnati experimentally found this to be true. An Environmental Protection Agency approved baffle flask test was used, which involves a specially designed flask that allows for the isolation of multiple environments so that the effectiveness of dispersants could be measured in different conditions that would affect oil degradation and dispersion when in marine environments. These different conditions include temperature, oil type, and water conditions. Water conditions being the mixing energy of currents, waves, and wind. Water conditions in this test were simulated by swirling and shaking the flask at different speeds and intensities. Dispersant effectiveness could be tested for by comparing results to a reference test, which did not contain any chemical dispersants. Multiple flasks were used for each test, and then replicated multiple times to ensure data was randomized and any findings could be considered statistically significant. After extensive testing, the results showed that dispersants were experimentally effective in breaking up oil slicks and forming small oil droplets, which were significantly affected by external factors that were tested. Water conditions showed a significant correlation with oil dispersant effectiveness, being that more rigorous water conditions led to increased rates of dispersion. An increase in temperature led to great dispersion as well, and oil type did not make a difference in oil dispersant effectiveness. Although dispersants are effective in oil degradation and dispersion, the environmental effects have been highly debated. First off, it has been stated by many that dispersants are non-toxic to most species, but there have been no long-term studies on the effects on ecosystems where dispersants have been used. Some believe it is a way to cover up obvious effects of a spill since the amount of oil that makes it to shore is reduced, leading to further problems of the ecosystems out at sea that encounter the dispersed oil. Yet others believe that by dispersing the oil and reducing the concentration, the affected ecosystems are better off and oil will remain in waters for a shorter period of time.